Hey all, it's Jeremy, and I'm back with Irony is the Truest Medicine. Today, I want to get personal. Not about you necessarily. Well, yeah, you and me and everybody. But I want to do it autobiographically. I want to talk about what it's like for me, see if you can find the equivalent in you. I'll start where it's most intimate, losing sleep at night and the dreams I get in between losing sleep. I had a great run in the world of sex, love, romance, dating, partnership, all of that. I retired from it about 11 years ago, realizing that I wasn't particularly good at it. And you can perhaps imagine why. I can be very entertaining in short doses, but intimacy would be difficult with me. The way I describe it is that I'm glad that my lack of appetite finally caught up with my lack of aptitude. I was good at attracting women. It was my obsession for many years. And I got good at it in part by expressing, by women would fall in love through their ears. They were attracted to me because I could name more than two emotions. I wasn't one of your typical emotionally crippled American males. I wasn't the usual strong silent type. But that's actually not much fun. If a woman shows any interest in me that way, I make it clear that while they might find it enchanting at first, they would find it oppressive in no time. It's still a strong force in me. You can't spend your formative years and decades after in partnership or looking to score without it having residue, without it having ongoing effects. So pretty much every night I fall in love in my dreams. And when I'm not dreaming, when I'm awake, there's something in me. There's a yearning to get back to that glorious feeling, that sensation of what I call being perma-affirmed, permanently affirmed. That's what romantic love felt like to me. The glory of being seen as admirable by an attractive woman was intoxicating. It gave me the sense that I was being granted life hereafter. It was one of my main confidence currencies, and I want to talk about them today. How do I know I'm okay, better than okay? How do I feel exceptional? How can I boost my mojo? How can I restore my confidence? Remember, from my perspective, this is a fundamental, deep, and often overlooked aspect of being human. We need a lot of affirmation. We are this creature that can conceive of anything. We have language. Language makes it possible for us to imagine anything. Like all organisms, we tend to be risk averse. That means we can conceive of all sorts of past, present, and future real and imaginary threats and missed opportunities. And it's scary to us. We are a fearful species. We would just have to be. That's the nature of language. It's like it comes with the package deal. We become extremely visionary because we have concepts, we can imagine possibilities, and then go out and create them. But we can also imagine our failure to do so, which makes us incredibly anxious. And then on top of that, we can comfort ourselves. We can give ourselves affirmations. We're an extremely delusional creature. I've been reflecting lately on why we're so terrible at recognizing that humans are radically different because we have language. I've been reading lots and lots of intellectual history, the history of people speculating about what we actually are, we humans, and then recently reading about how that conversation changed under the influence of Darwin. And it's just remarkable to me how all of these people, all of these intellectuals who are speculating about us in words, do not notice that they are speculating about us in words. I mean, I'm reading guys who are trying to figure out whether there's continuity between animals and humans, whether they're rational, whether, what's the source of our rationality. Darwin's main collaborator, Wallace, Alfred Russel Wallace, starts out saying that humans are obviously direct descendants from apes. But then, shortly after, and much to Darwin's disappointment, concludes that there has to be a spiritual something else that gets packaged into humans because we're so radically different. They do not notice the difference that language makes. And to this day, it's where I get the most pushback. When I explain to people that I work on the evolution and nature of language, basically our capacity to conceptualize, more often than not, people say, well, how do you know that a dog doesn't have language? How do you know that a monkey doesn't have language? Why are they skeptical there, of all places? It seems so obvious. Yes, we have opposable thumbs. Yes, we make tools, but we wouldn't begin to make the kinds of tools we do until we had language, the capacity to conceive, to diagram, to do the kinds of engineering we do. There is no question in my mind that language makes a huge difference. Or as my research colleague Terrence Deacon puts it, in some ways we are just another mid-sized mammal. But in terms of language, we're a whole other kingdom. So how does this relate? I'm an organism. I'm a human. I've got language. I've got doubts. I've got doubts as I age. I'm 69 years old now. I'm feeling it. Not as bad as some do, Lord knows, but I'm feeling it. I'm also feeling still young, and that's part of the challenge here, is that, and you've probably heard this before, that as you get older, you don't necessarily feel older. I mostly feel like I'm still the same guy. And it's disappointing to notice that the station wagon in which my heart and mind have traveled for these many decades is getting rickety. There's a wonderful poem about this. I've memorized it. It's by Thomas Hardy. I look into my glass and view my wasting skin and say, would God it come to pass, my heart had shrunk as thin. For then I, undistressed by hearts grown cold to me, could lonely wait my endless rest with equanimity. But time, to make me grieve, part steals, lets part abide, and shakes this fragile frame at eve with throbbings of noontide. He's saying it feels like spring, but my body says it's winter. It feels like noon, like I'm still young, but it shakes my fragile frame at eve. So that's certainly part of the situation here, is that I still feel young, but I also recognize that I'm getting old, and there's an ironic tension there. One example of the kind of irony I employ around that is to recognize, acknowledge, and declare that part of me thinks that death is for losers and I'm an exception. And I laugh at that. I'll even end this episode with a song I wrote on the subject called I'm Sure Gonna Miss Me When I'm Gone. This is a fundamental challenge that humans deal with. And Ernest Becker, the author of Denial of Death, makes a big point out of this. He is talking about how we are the only creatures, due to language, we are the only creatures that have the capacity, the inescapable, daunting experience of knowing we're going to die. So from my perspective, following on his kinds of ideas, I think a big question that lurks underneath many of our questions, religious, spiritual, romantic, all of those questions, is how to throw all in knowing you're going to be thrown out. How to invest in life knowing that you'll have to divest. And I count three main responses to that, and the ironic is the third. The first is, from Becker's point of view, what humans do when they recognize their death, when they're primed on their death, when they are thinking for a moment about the fact that they're going to die, is they engage in what he calls immortality projects. You start to talk like you've got your values. You dig in your heels on your values. And research that follows from Becker, research in the topic area called terror management theory, does experiments that demonstrate that this is exactly right. You prime subjects on their deaths and then see what they do the evidence is they dig in their heels on their values. It's like their values will live on beyond them, that what they stand for is immortal. You can draw direct parallels to the kind of terror provocation or terror entrepreneurship that you get, for example, from the Trump movement. This sense that the sky is falling that keeps everybody dug in on their values. It's dangerous for humankind, but I don't see a way of transcending it. So back to my nights. In my nights, I am slowly weaning myself off a confidence currency. For years, I thrived on the confidence currency. It was my immortality project, or at least a big one. This thing about getting perma-affirmed by women. Perma-affirmed meaning that they adored me, and I felt like I was being granted everlasting life. And then they stopped adoring me because I'm a pain in the ass at close range. I'm just too mouthy for partnership. In partnership, you have to be really honest and you have to be really tactful. You have to be more honest and less honest, and you have to do it in the right mixture. I wasn't good at that, and I retired from it. I also recognized that I didn't have the appetite to try anymore. I was getting a little better at biting my tongue, but not much better. I could bite it maybe once or twice, and then I'd say what I honestly felt. I do all of this work in public, like YouTube videos and blog articles, in which I have to be honest. That's my shtick. That's my bit, is I'm trying to be as honest as I can be, including as honest as I can be about how dishonest we humans have to be. And that's not flattering. So what I'm doing through the night is I am weaning myself. I just have to be sad for a few years. No, I don't want to be back in partnership. I don't think it's even justifiable for me to pretend that I could make it work, because I don't think I have the staying power and I don't think they would want it. In the meantime, that confidence currency, which to me is the equivalent of a immortality project, lives on. It shakes my fragile frame at eve with longings of noontide. Now, different people have different confidence currencies. I had another one that also served me extremely well for a long time. I played in bands. I was a low-level musician, jazz musician. I would play restaurants. I would play what I called figs, which were figments of gigs. They were poorly attended, often by audiences that aren't really audiences. They're people who are trying to have a conversation. I got fairly good for my scale of playing. And then about a year ago, I realized that I'd had my day in the sun and it was time for me to drop out of that world. I still practice at home. I still play some, but not nearly as much. And part of that is my hearing is going. I have very bad upper frequency hearing. One of my audiologists says that I have the hearing of an 80-year-old sawmill worker. I don't know why. Perhaps the bands were part of it. Perhaps it's the quantity of speed listening I do to books. But for whatever reason, it was time to let that one go. And yeah, they show up in my dreams too. That's a confidence currency. I'm dreaming of being on the edge of catching that ring again, the joy, the excitement of playing good gigs. There's always a little bit of panic in it, like I'm not going to be able to make it to the gig on time, or I'm lost looking for where the gig is, which happened more than a couple of times. But then the same with the partnership thing. I don't have dreams. I have dream mirrors. There's always a bit of anxiety in there. And so that's what it's like to settle gradually into having to let go of some of our confidence currencies. I do think that irony really helps with it, to recognize that I'm kind of like a Mack truck trying to stop. There's a skidding to it. No, I can keep going. No, I can't. No, I can keep going. No, I can't. And you know that plenty of old folks have trouble letting go of their confidence currency. Standard example would be the old guy who shouldn't be driving anymore, but just insists. I'm reminded of a wonderful Randy Newman song on the subject. He says, "I'm dead, but I don't know it. Every record that I make is like a record that I've made, just not as good." But he goes on and says, "I'm dead, but I don't know it. Please, but please don't tell me so. Let me go." Meaning, I want to keep going. I want to keep going. So in a way, that's the heart irony of life, is that we want to throw all into life, and yet everything we throw into is something we will be thrown out of. And we have to deal with that. And not only that, we can foresee it, unlike other critters, because we have language. And it's terribly disappointing. And I think it even contributes to movements like what happened to the boomers. I think that's mostly what we're dealing with. I have a suspicion about my tribe. That is, I was born 4 years before the cutoff on boomers. I am a boomer. And we were given everything. It was the luckiest possible time to be alive. And now we're having to give things up, and we're throwing tantrums. We're becoming Karens. We're joining MAGA. I do wonder, if there's any statistic I'd love to see, it's what percentage of the Woodstock generation, the people who attended Woodstock, are now MAGA supporters. Because I think they're raging against the dying of the light. And I am too. How you manage that is a real interesting question to me. And as I said, there are 3 main ways to do it, which is, how do you invest knowing you'll have to divest? One approach is that you find the one true investment that you'll never have to let go of, because it will grant you eternal life. So when you think about the 2.4 billion Christians or the 1.8 billion Muslims, I think there's a lot of that going on there. And you could say it's a major motivation for the supply of that confidence currency, the religious confidence currency. One way to think about these currencies, there are things that unconsciously you would say, well, at least I've got that, or at least I don't have that other thing that they have. That would just be a natural appetite for humans. We would want to feel exceptional. Because we live in language, because we're flooded with concepts, many of them disturbing, we're trying to keep our heads above water. We'll take all of the elevation we can get and won't want to let go of it, even if it turns out to be bogus. The feeling one would get in religion, the comfort. We have all sorts of euphemistic terms for it, like it's love, God's love, connection, which is the original meaning of religion. It's to rebind people, faith. Such terms, I think, are basically euphemisms for affirmation, which humans crave. We crave affirmation, and we'll take all we can get. Nobody leaves affirmation on the table. That's not completely true, but I think that it's mostly true. If there's a way to feel like you've been granted a badge of honor, at least I've got this, you're not going to leave it on the table. You're going to pick it up and embrace it. The major challenge for attractive young women is that how do you resist the charisma you emit? How do you resist the temptation to play off of the affirmation you get for being beautiful? It's especially hard for women for a number of reasons, but one is that it tends to have a shorter shelf life than some other confidence currencies. You will attract men readily. Early on, it gets harder past 50 and 60. So that's a weaning that they have to go through, and it's the counterpart to my weaning at night. My gradual acceptance that I had my day in the sun. I will not be maintained in the manner to which I am accustomed. I can no longer score like I did. I can no longer play music like I did. You are losing capacities that once were really important to me, and still remain important to me. And so this one approach that I just mentioned is you find the one immortality project that will see you through, that will grant you eternal life. A second one you get from those people who say that you need to convince yourself to transcend your ego, to become selfless, even to decide that you're not a self. include various ascetic traditions, Buddhism being a classic example of this. And it's basically saying, how do you invest knowing you have to divest? Don't invest. Just divest, 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 divest. I still know a few people who are wedded to this. I don't think it's working very well. They're very proud of their campaign to transcend ego, as though ego is beneath them, and they don't seem to notice that. I understand it, just like I understand the first campaign, the one where you find the eternal immortality project that you can tie yourself to. I'm a Christian, I'll live forever, that kind of thing. The third is where irony plays in. It's where I live. Not where I live at night, not where I live emotionally, but where I ground myself. I ground myself in the slippery slope I'm falling down. It's simply recognizing that this question, how to throw all in knowing you'll be thrown out, how to invest knowing you'll have to divest, is the curriculum of life. And I just live it every day. Every little disappointment, every little death, every little thwarting, every little gradual, reluctant recognition that I don't have it anymore, that I had something and I don't have it anymore. All of that is sacred text to me. So you understand that in those two first approaches, one like Christianity, which is about being granted eternal life, there are exclusive sacred texts, and you cling to them. They are accessories in your immortality campaign. The Bible, for example, the Quran. In the second one, you've also got sacred texts, Buddhist documents, that kind of thing. In the third, the one I'm proposing, the ironic one, everything is sacred text. And there's real satisfaction in that. You know, so a lot of people feel like there ought to be a movie of their lives. Lots of lives. I mean, yes, if it was artistically done, maybe. But there's no reason you can't treat it that way and make it not a summer blockbuster, but a deep and poignant movie that you just are living. You're watching your own movie. You're watching yourself stuck in the human condition, grounded on the slippery slope that is pulling up the rug from under you, and you're falling, and it's kind of funny and deeply troubling in the middle of the night. And that's just how it is. That's getting real about what we actually are, all of us. And there's actually communion and compassion in it. That is, if you recognize that you are going through what other people are going through, this is the other part of me, the part that says death is for losers and I'm an exception. This is the part of me that has the conceptual upper hand, which is to say, no, I'm not an exception. I'm on this ride, and I have been on it since the day I was born. Everything becomes sacred text for this ironic view of life, the ironic view that says, yeah, look at me. I'm quite the hapless character on this ride that will not end well. I had a funny conversation with Terry Deacon, my research colleague. He's the neuroscientist at Berkeley. And I was telling him, some part of me thinks that I really ought to be partnered, because what if I get sick and I'm dealing with it all alone? He's very married. And he says, life doesn't end well. This is a neuroscientist, biologist, and he's quite aware of that, no matter how you slice it. And yeah, I know you can say some deaths are easier or better than others, but it's been a long time since I lived for a flourish at the end. The way it first struck me was to realize that by the end, I'll be demented. And if I'm cranky, I'll tell a story about my life as though it was a tale told by an idiot signifying nothing. And if I'm cheerful, I'll tell a story about how it was glorious and I was heroic. But I'll be demented, and either one of those stories will be bogus. They'll be fictions, comforting fictions. If I'm cheerful, if I'm grumpy, I'll tell a story about how the world treated me wrong. But I'll be delusional by then. That's not what to live for. To live instead for the treatment of everything as sacred text. Every experience we have, every bit of fiction we read. Why? Because it's actually facing the whole ball of wax and us stuck in it. as opposed to sacred texts, which are narrow. They're saying, don't pay attention to these aspects of life, pay attention to these filters. And in a way, they're also filters spelled that other way, the pH way, where they're a kind of medicine, a medicine that makes you feel better, an elixir, kind of a filter. So I don't begrudge any of us our confidence currencies. I do think it is worthwhile to notice which ones you're relying on. What things feel like they give you bragging rights? Playing gigs or having arm candy, trophy wife, girlfriends. Those were confidence currencies for me. I even set down a list, an autobiographical list of the confidence currencies across my life. I let go of one because I found another one that was better. And by better, I don't mean better for the world. I mean a more efficient source of confidence. Whether they were good for me or bad is a separate question. I'm like a monkey who jumped from this confidence currency branch to another one that was easier to hang on to. And they would come and go. And sometimes they would disappear on me. Sometimes they would lose their luster. But I recommend that to you. If you're trying to understand your life, recognize that your life has a lot in common with human lives. Try that out. Write a list of the confidence currencies, the ways you kept your mojo flowing across your lifetime and how they changed. It's the part we don't like to look at very much. We don't want to see ourselves as drawn to a partner because they affirm us. In locker room conversation, you're going to be much more confident saying, yeah, I needed to partner with someone because I needed sex than saying I needed to partner with someone because of affirmation. I think of affirmation as a black market. We don't want to know that we're in this game where we're looking for reassurance from. We're much more likely to talk about having joined a cause or taken up a belief system because of its content than for the confidence it gave us. And yet, in retrospect, I'd say it was mostly for the confidence. I think of us as extremely needy species and really needing to not notice that we're needy. Other people are needy. We can gossip about them, but not me. Egotism is beneath me. So that's why it becomes this black market, affirmation. It's almost like retirement planning. I haven't made this connection before now, but I think it's a worthwhile one. I'm very interested in what to expect when you're expecting to grow older. I keep role models around. I make good friends with people who are older than me. And some of them are positive role models. I really appreciate how gracefully they're doing it. Others are negative role models. It's useful to have negative role models in your life. People you say, oh, if I do too much of that, I'll end up like that, and I don't want to. But the positive role models I see are people who are still trading in confidence currencies. They have something or other that keeps them going. It's actually a kind of retirement planning to make sure that you have some confidence currencies left. Can you guess which mine is? No, it's actually fairly easy for me to give up the whole sex, love, romance, partnership, dating thing because I have this, because I have ideas. Now they've got a shelf life. I can do them until I'm demented. Dating, not so much. At some point, the upholstery gets too worn out and nobody wants you. The same with music. I was able to give up my bragging rights. Sorry, I can't join you tonight. I have a gig, which made me feel all big. No, I was able to give that up. I was able to give up the joys of impressing other musicians and audience members, or at least getting their compliments, however disingenuous. Why? Because I have this, and this has some legs. I can do this till I'm demented. And after that, I don't know. But I can do this even after I've got audience. I mean, my audience expands and shrinks, but mostly shrinks because I'm a lot. And I assume that I will spend my declining years taking notes regardless of whether there's any audience around. That's going to be quite a weaning. I imagine I'll have some sleepless nights over that too. I'll just have to be sad. It's like, I always think of it like the tectonic plates shifting. I live in Berkeley where we have earthquakes a few miles from the San Andreas fault line. So there's a way in which the ground settles at a lower level, and it takes you a while to adjust to the lower level. That's irony. It's like thinking you have ground underneath you and the ground falling out from under you. I do recommend, if you're interested, you can share it with me in the comments section, a list of the confidence currencies that you've relied on and let go of across your life. Think forward a bit, because some of the confidence currencies, these ways to keep your mojo working, have a shorter shelf life than others. If your joy comes from playing soccer, at some point your knees might go out. If your joy comes from dating hotties, male or female, that has a somewhat limited shelf life. These days, there's actually a wonderful array of confidence currencies we can play in. Video games, VR, TV is a fabulous one. Recognize that you need that way of fluffing yourself up. Seeing happy endings to movies, seeing romantic fiction where things turn out well. It can be increasingly difficult to watch procedurals in which the government is behaving itself or acting heroic, because we're seeing the opposite now. It's going to be harder to make those movies. But the escapism that you can engage in will probably be some of your last confidence currency. And to make it safe escapism, to make it a safe currency for your later years, because we now know how dangerous it can be when people are losing their mojo because they're aging, and what they decide to do is engage in this public circle jerk vanity project called MAGA. I think that's the consequence of the baby boomers not being able to let go, not being able to recognize that they've had their day in the sun and now they have to let it go. They have to resist that part of them that expects to be maintained to the manner to which they are accustomed. That is what I do in the middle of the night, where I dream that some lovely woman falls in love with me, or I dream of playing a gig, and then I wake up and realize that was then, this is now. Thanks for listening. I'll be back. I'm sure gonna miss me when I'm gone. I'll be crying for years after I say my last so long. The enemy will be my biggest tragedy. I'm sure gonna miss me when I'm gone. I'll admit that I've been a real slow starter. Only now am I getting any smarter. So when my time has come, I'm not guessing I feel done. I'm sure gonna miss me when I'm gone. Up to now I've only been improving, better with age and with schooling. I'm not too far ahead, see I'm gonna soon be dead. I'm sure gonna miss me when I'm gone. Sure gonna miss me when I'm gone. I'll be miserable for years once I sing my final song. The mortal death of me will be my biggest tragedy. I'm sure gonna miss me when I'm gone. They say the dead lose their leases, their whole world explode to pieces. From what I see, that's just so wrong for me. I'm sure gonna miss me when I'm gone. I've wasted time
gone too slow, learning things I now already know. Now that I'm wise, death seems such a compromise. I'm sure gonna miss me when I'm gone. Sure gonna miss me when I'm gone. Be bummed out for eons once I hear that closing gone. Mortal death of me be my biggest tragedy. Sure gonna miss me when I'm gone. Some say heaven waits out there, but after death you no longer care. But knowing what I know, I'll sure hate to see me go. I'm sure gonna miss me when I'm gone. Some say with age you make your peace and calmly wait your sweet soul's release. But the longer that I'm living, the less I wanna give, and I'm sure gonna miss me when I'm gone. I'd like to believe in reincarnation, 'cause after death I'll crave rejuvenation. But older means I'm smarter, afterlife is a non-starter. You're sure gonna miss me when I'm gone. I like to maintain a cheerful state, even when the circumstances aren't so great. Still death, what a curse, I can't imagine one much worse. I'm sure gonna miss me when I'm gone. I'm sure gonna miss me when I'm gone. I'll be crying for years after I say my last so long. The end of me will be my biggest tragedy. I'm sure gonna miss me when I'm gone.